Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karamavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti. Three schools of thought. So the three schools we refer to as Sampradayas. In the study of Vedanta, there are three Sampradayas. Or some of them use the word Matha also. Matha means path, three paths, three interpretations or three ways. And this three is not enough actually. There are more than this actually existing. But these three were the most popular one. The Advaita, Vasishtha Advaita and Dvaita. Now, all these three systems agree on few points and don't agree on few points. And all these three, which were supposed to have been systematized, it is wrong to say that they established it, they systematized this by Shankara, Ramanuja and Madhva. Shankara is the oldest. Then came Ramanuja, and then just very close to Ramanuja is Madhva. Now, any system, if you wanted to study, remember the system has to describe or explain few points. What is that they are supposed to be describing? Basically three things. World, you, God. These are the three basic things. First, they have to explain what is the Jiva Swarupa, and then what is the Jagat Swarupa, nature of the world, and then Jiva Swarupa means the nature of the Jiva, individual, and then Ishvara Swarupa, God. So we have these three. Basic idea is they are supposed to explain these 3 points. And then, while explaining these 3 points, they have to touch upon what is the connection between the three. What is the relationship between, what is the stand of Jagat, Jiva and Ishvara, and what is the relationship between these three? In that discussion is what we study is the Swarupa or the nature of the bondage, and then they have to describe what is the nature of liberation, Moksha Swarupa, and then they have to explain what is the sadhana, what is the method. So in this, essentially there are 3 points, and then ancillary to that is another 3 points. So totally you have 6 points. Any darshana you have to discuss, you have to ask these 6 questions. What is it is considered as moksha according to each one? What is the sadhana according to each one? What is the bondage according to each one? And then what is that how they are describing the nature of God, you, world. So if you understand these 6 points, you will find this. And in these 6 points, there are differences. All 3 schools explain these 6 points in a different way. Sometimes it will look very close to each other. Sometimes it will look diagonally opposite to each other. In that, there are few things they agree also. It's not that they don't agree upon anything. They agree upon few points. Very basic points, they all agree. So, but most of us concentrate with reference to seeing what is the difference. The fact that there are 3 different standing is the idea that there is a difference. Now we can't say they are all saying the same thing. For example, now I'm not going into the details of all that. Okay, how Madhva explaining, how he is explaining, how he is explaining. Now if I go, that will become too scholastic, scholarly presentation. In fact, we are not interested in that sort of a thing here. But at the same time, having studied Vedanta, you are supposed to know few things at least. What is it, sir? Now, one of the points, what I was trying to explain is this, touch upon, is what is the nature of Jiva? See, as far as this is what I was referring, something may come very close, but they don't. Now, Madhva and Ramanuja, both of them describe Jiva as a separate one, but he is dependent and he is of the size, or it is, you can say whatever you want to say, because there is no gender for Jiva. Right? I'm just using the word he. It is just a figurative one. That's about it. There is no gender here. Jiva Swarupa is that of Angushta size or atomic size. He is that size of one atom. Such a small size he is what the description. And they describe also. There is a huge study on that explanation. But in that, we find this Dvaita and Vasishtha Dvaita agreeing. Whereas Advaita says Jiva is not like that. Jiva is actually just a notional idea. Jiva's actual nature is Brahman. So there is no such thing called individual thing called Jiva. Jiva is just your belief. In ignorance, you think yourself to be the Jiva, but factually you are not that. You are Brahman. So they stand totally different. So in this aspect, you will find very different actually. Similarly, when it comes to this Ishvara Swarupa, what is the nature of Ishvara? If you see, there they say Ishvara is of Saguna. And both of them agree, Dvaita and Vasishtha Dvaita both agree that Vishnu is the Supreme God. So there is no Nirguna Brahman at all. But we do see the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra talking about Nirguna Brahman, no, all that. When they say Nirguna Brahman, it is only denying whatever you think as the guna of that. That's about it. Not what you think. To indicate that they are using such words, they say and dismiss it. But essentially, what is it? Ishvara is Saguna. And there is no Nirguna Brahman at all. And when you come to Advaita philosophy, Advaita school, they say this real nature of Ishvara is Brahman, Nirguna. And then what about Jagat Sar? There is a difference. Madhva says, I just use three words, no? Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. So I'm just telling what is the difference. They have only these three words. Very basic one. And then we will go into the study and how much they fight with each other, etc., and all those things. You know, and it is so interesting to see. So when it comes to this Jagat, as far as Dvaita is concerned, this Jagat is different from God. The world is different from God. And world is real. If you remember, we saw that in the theory of perception. And Madhva relies on the realist side. He leans more towards the realist, as it were. And he relies more on pratyaksha, direct perception. And he subscribes only to three things: pratyaksha, anumana, and agama. Only these three is what he takes. And in that he says, it is too obvious. You know, you see it is there, no? So therefore he says, world is real. Then how did this world come about? World was created by God. So what is God? God is only, those who have been following will be able to follow what I'm saying. Though, you know, God is only the instrumental cause. That's about it. He is not a material cause. God is exactly like a pot maker, making a pot out of clay, which means clay is independent of the pot maker. Correct. So clay is a Prakriti. Out of Prakriti, Vishnu creates the world. So the world is there, and in that world, the jivas were all living. Why the jivas were all living here is because of their own karma. Why you are having your birth? Because of your karma only. That's it. When you come to this Vasishtha-Dvaita, there he makes a slight change there. There is a slight angle difference. Prakriti is part of Vishnu. In fact, this Jiva and the Jagat both are just the body of Vishnu. Exactly like Jiva has a body, right? We are all having a body, correct? Like that. Vishnu also has body. What is his body? His body is made up of the world, including you and me. So what are we? We are his body. and the body swells and shrinks. No. Suddenly you see someone and say, why you have lost weight? You ask, right? And then suddenly you ask, you see the fellow and put on weight. Body swells, shrinks. The swelling of Vishnu's body is called creation. Shrinking of Vishnu's body is called dissolution. So what is the relationship between you and your body? Is the same relationship is there between the world and God, Vishnu. Right. Then Shankara comes. He asks, which world you are talking about? He says there is no world only. Now, which world you are talking? It is just ignorance. In ignorance, you have projected one. Therefore, this ignorance has created this illusory world. Upon knowledge, once you gain a proper knowledge and proper understanding, that understanding will destroy that ignorance and the world will dissolve. Then you will understand there is only Brahman existing everywhere. Problem solved. So the bondage you are in now, the cause of your bondage is what? According to Shankara, is ignorance, avidya. According to Madhva and Ramanuja, it is karma. No, avidya and all that. Ignorance is not their essential one. Their essential one is your karma. If you have done punya karma, and by doing punya, you go to different heaven, heavens. And then you do papa, you go to hell. If you were to do this as Kainkariya to Vishnu, instead of doing services to other gods, if you were to offer that to Lord Vishnu, he will decide one day to get you an entry into Vaikuntha. That entry into Vaikuntha is called a liberation. Right. According to Madhva and Ramanuja. So for them, what is moksha? Entrance into Vaikuntha is called moksha. And then what is the sadhana for that? In that sadhana, all three agree. What is it? You have to practice karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga. All three is there. But then the krama differs. The order only differs. Where there is extra accent given differs. The stress. Why? Because that depends on what is the cause of your bondage. Right. According to Shankara, what is the cause of your bondage? Ignorance. Then obviously what should be the, where you have to give accent? There is more stress on jnana yoga. Right. So there he says it is only through knowledge you gain liberation, and to qualify you to gain knowledge, you practice karma and bhakti. So in Shankara, remember, all three agree. Karma to be practiced, karma yoga to be done, bhakti yoga to be done, jnana yoga to be done. But for Shankara, what is it? For Shankara, main one is jnana, and karma and bhakti are only a preparatory one. It qualifies you to take to the path of knowledge. It is a preparatory one. You gain that adhikaritvam for them. Now, when you come to this Vasishtha Advaita and Dvaita, there the krama slightly changes. They just interchange it. What do they interchange? He says, according to them, it is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga. With Jnanam, with Karma, proper practice of Karma Yoga, and with the proper knowledge, defectless knowledge of the nature of Brahman, you surrender to God. Bhakti comes as a primary one for them. So then what happens? Karma and Jnanam becomes the preparatory one for Bhakti. Straight away you can't become a Bhakta. That is not possible. You need a lot of, you have to practice a lot of karma, and then you have to gain a lot of understanding. For that only, you have to study the Shastras. This is according to Dvaita and Vasishtadvaita. There are a lot of changes you will find, differences we find, and at the same time, we find a lot of commonality also. What is so interesting about the commonality with all these three, or in fact, others also actually, Vallabhacharya or this, Srikanta and others, if you add all those people, all of them have taken the authority of the Shastras, scriptures. 1. 2, they have taken the same scripture. It's not that different scriptures. They have taken the same scriptures of the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. One is Upanishads were treated, Brahma Sutra treated, and Bhagavad Gita treated by all three, but all three establish they are saying whatever their conclusions are. Right. Now, this doesn't show anything. It only shows, Appai Dikshidhar, whom I had referred earlier. I had referred to you people earlier, but in this context, you have to know. He has written a book, a text, a beautiful text, explaining all this three. In fact, he adds one more actually in that. Now, Ramanuja's Vasishtadvaita is referred to as Vishnu Para Vasishtadvaita. Right. Similarly, there is another Vasishtadvaita is there, with Shiva as the main one. So he includes that. There he has written a text, Chaturmada Sara Sangraha, where he writes all four, what do they say, and how each one is coming as a stepping stone. How each one of them were correct, appropriate, and how one leads to the other. So there he says, the starting point for anyone in this life, if you want to start spiritual efforts, you have to start from Dvaita. Then go to Vasishtadvaita. There he takes two branches. You can take as Vishnu, or you can take to Shiva Vasishtadvaita, which is that Srikanta's one. Then finally you have to come to Advaita. Now here we cannot say, because it is kept like this, you cannot say, sir, the fourth floor is better than the ground floor. No. Yes. Therefore, what are you going to do? Construct the fourth floor first. Later on, we will discuss about the first floor. What will happen to that building? Is it ever possible? Such a construction is an impossibility, if at all someone were to attempt. So when we say steps, remember that he gives the steps beautifully in the text, where he takes the commentary of all these four acharyas on one text, Brahma Sutra only. One Brahma Sutra takes, and he gives a very interesting comparison. He says, after reading all that, he says, what I am so surprised is the capacity of the sutras. See, and he compares the Brahma Sutra of Vyasa to Pushpaka Vimana in that introduction to that book, he says. Yes, Pushpaka Vimana, he says. Pushpaka Vimana, you know, Ravana had a Pushpaka Vimana, aeroplane. But that aeroplane had a peculiar property, not like our flights. Right? If you want to have it as a two-seater, it will become a two-seater. If you are having a crowd of 250, it will become a 250-seater. If you want to convert that into 5,600, it will become 5,600. It will accommodate. Sir, entire Bangalore want to go. It will accommodate entire Bangalore. The proof is there in Ramayana itself. Because after the war, Rama has to rush back to Ayodhya. So he can't walk across and all that. Now, you know, he has 1 hour and he comes back with this in his Pushpa Viman. When he's coming back, there is a stopover. Fuel refilling maybe. In Kishkinda. At Kishkinda, everybody wants to come and see Rama's coronation. You know, everyone wants to come. And Rama says, bring them, no? So, Lanka, this Vibhishna and those people, all the Rakshasas, in the same flight, they had these Vanaras also. All that landed near Bharadwaj Ashram. It can accommodate, even if entire Ayodhya want to get in, it will accommodate. That is the beauty. You know, like that. Abhay Dikshita says, this Badarayana's Brahma Sutras are like that. You want to interpret it this way, can. And all this is just, you know, 555 statements. That's all it is. If you see it, it is a sutra format, you know, very limited words only, not, you know, big words and all that. It's just, you know, small sentences. 55 sentences. 55 sutras mean 55 sentences. That's it. In that 55 sentences, people were able to extract so much of material out of it. And still, it keeps on giving. Therefore, he says, it is not only Pushpa Vimana, it is also a Kalpaka Vriksha. You can go on asking from that, it will keep on giving. Now, that's why in our, you know, this one, I don't know how many of you are aware, this one. Madhvacharya has written 4 commentaries for Brahma Sutra itself. He wrote a commentary, Bhashya, and then he is not satisfied. I don't think people will understand this. So he wrote another commentary. Then he thought, no. I'll write another commentary. And then he wrote one more commentary. 4 commentaries he has written for Brahma Sutra itself. So huge. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, the Upanishads. All of them have tremendous one depending upon where you stand. Now, essentially what we understand here is we subscribe to what Abhay Dikshidhar says. Our system is following Abhay Dikshidhar. Says these schools, these masters are not contradicting each other. They are complementing each other. One complements the other. The other complements the other. Now, if you want to go into the discussions, it will be, too dry, at the same time, extremely interesting. It is so dry. At the same time, very interesting to study. Like any literature, if you go, the differences and all that they pick up is on few words. This in the Brahma Sutra itself, it states. They take the first sutra, Atavato Brahma Jignasa. Thus, therefore, inquiry into Brahman. So, therefore, inquiry into Brahman. This all the statement is. The first sutra of Brahma Sutra starts like that. What an introduction by those people. Fascinating analysis. That the word Brahman, the sound, for the word they do a huge analysis. And if you go into the details of it, it is so engaging. We're not going into that details of all those things because it's not necessary. As it is, whatever I have given you is more than sufficient. Because there are 6 points and where they come closer to each other and where they differ. And what they agree upon, what they don't agree upon. All that we have seen already. So there is no need for us to go into that. But some of you, if you are really interested, you can go into. But don't ask me. Sir, why don't you start a class on that? Don't ask. Okay. Allah would work here. So as far as we are concerned, as seekers of truth, what are we supposed to do? And how a mumukshu will be looking at it. This is the context of the book. In the book Vedanta Treatise, we are studying these 3 schools for what? The agenda is not to say where they are agreeing, where they are not agreeing. This is not the point. So what is the purpose here? Now, why suddenly we have to study about these 3? One, as a person who has been exposed to the subject called Vedanta ought to know. 1, academically. 2, if you are a seeker, then you have to know this because these 3 schools were the fundamental methods for your evolution. If you are a mumukshu, then also you have to know the 3 because one leads to the other. It's like first floor, second floor, third floor. 3 floors. If you are standing at the ground floor, first floor you go, you get a view. Second floor you go, you get a view. Third floor you go, you get a different view. Now, how can you have the same view at all 3 levels? Right. Okay, in our house and all, it is only about 9 feet. Ceiling, no? Right, including the flooring, if you take another 2 feet. So total 11 feet will be there. The difference is going to be. But here it is so grand. So grand, one floor is about 100 feet. There are 3 floors. Now, first floor you cover itself, you have to cross 100 feet, you have to go up. And then you have to climb the second floor, which is another 100 feet height. And then the third floor. Now, these 3 were discussed as a stepping stone. So for a seeker, we start with this Dvaita and slowly we move into Advaita. Vasishtha Advaita. And then finally merge in Advaita. So for that, the whole explanation is. Rest are all interesting ones, how they are explaining, how they are interpreting this, where they are, contradicting each other, and on what basis they say, and why you have to study a separate text. When Upanishads have already given, why Vyasa has to write one Brahma Sutra Bhashya itself. Brahma Sutra itself. It is a waste of time, no? When Upanishads have already given the truth, why this guy who has no other job or what? Why Vyasa has to write? He's not like you and me, right? We are also having authors, writing books. Because you can't be without writing. There are people, those who have started writing, they cannot not write. They reach a point, something I have to write. So go on writing. It's not that, he has a passion, he has a desire. They don't have any passion or desire for writing. When they're writing for a specific purpose. Now, when Upanishads have already explained all those things, when things are there already, why Vyasa has to write a separate book called Brahma Sutra? And what is so interesting is, all the 3 masters ask the same question in the beginning of their commentary. In the beginning of their Bhashya, all 3 masters ask the same question. Why a separate book called Brahma Sutra? What is a necessity? It's a waste of time. Isn't it redundant? Isn't it useless? All questions will be asked. They themselves raise those questions, objections, and give a explanation. Satisfactory explanation they give. Which is, the objections were referred by those people technically as Purva Paksha. Opposite view. And then they take up and analyze and explain where the Purva Pakshi has made a mistake. Therefore, this is the thing. So then they establish what is their views. So that's how they go about explaining. It's a highly intellectual. And all these 3 masters are extraordinary in their logic, in their reasoning, in their analytical ability. All 3 are legendary, impossible to uncomparable. The best part is all 3 were treated as Avatara Purushas. That's also another one. All the 3 Acharyas were treated as avatars. Shankara is considered by these people as avatar of Shiva. Right. Ramanuja was treated as avatar of Adisesha. Right. Then Madhva is considered as the avatar of Vayu. Who is the son of Vishnu? Right. So he's almost sort of a grandson. That's why you will find, Madhva's pictures, you will find, Hanuman and Bhima. Behind, if you see Madhva's pictures, you will find, the Hanuman is also there and Bhima also there. Because Hanuman is also considered as avatar of, or the son of Vayu. Bhima also is considered as avatar or son of Vayu. Same way, Madhvacharya also considered as avatar of Vayu. That's why he just disappeared, they say. Madhva didn't die. He just disappeared. They're just sitting. It's like me sitting in front of you, suddenly I disappear. Not magic. No, it looks like very magical actually. And all these three masters have performed very many miracles like that. Miraculous things were attributed to all the three masters. So in terms of the caliber, it would be impossible for any one of us. And I have seen, people asking, imagine, sir, Ramanuja and Shankara were to have a debate. Who would have won? First of all, you will not understand a word of what they are going to talk. Right? If at all they meet each other, they will be winking at each other. Idiot fellows. That's about it. They'll have a good gala time. That's all. They are not going to get involved with debates and all that, these masters. So don't get, cheapen those people, please. All three were extraordinary. Remember, there is no way, even though we say it is steps, don't think it is any inferior. Remember this. On the basis of this alone, that is possible. Without this, that is impossible. So that's what, Einstein says. So when he gave his theory, the fellow asked Einstein, so you are disproving Newton, huh? He said, yes. I'm saying he's wrong. But what you have to realize is, I am standing on his shoulder and saying that. Sitting on his shoulder, I'm saying it. Like you would have seen in the village, festivals and all that, chariot festivals and all that, you would have seen fathers, carrying their kids on their shoulder. They'll be sitting on the shoulder. The one who is sitting will always have the ability to see little away. Their vision will be far than the father. The higher you go, your vision will be more panoramic. But then you will miss the details. Remember that. That's why when you come to Madhvacharya, amazing details. Ramanuja gives slightly less. Shankara wholly dismisses the whole thing. He doesn't inquire into all those things. So why they are not doing it? No? Because from that height, it's not required. But the height, when we say, we are not talking just, academical, intellectual debates and discussions. Now here we are discussing this from the perspective of a person who wants to grow using Vedanta. If you want to grow spiritually using Vedanta, then you have to understand the three schools. Right. So we'll read it and then I'll explain what he is saying here and all that. Yeah.
Three schools of thought. There are three schools of thought which explain the relation between a human being and God. They are known as Dvaita, dualism, Advaita, monism, and Vishishta Advaita, qualified monism. The school of dualism states that you are separate from God. You are a finite being God is infinite, that you can never become one with God. Madhavacharya is the chief exponent of the dualistic theory. In the school of monism lays down the absolute oneness of God, that there can be no division or demarcation in the absolute. The finite has no separate status in the infinite. You cannot be separate from God. You are God. That is the philosophy enunciated by Adi Shankaracharya. The school of qualified monism considers you as an aspect of God. God is whole and you are a part of the whole. You will remain apart and can never merge with God. Ramanujacharya propounded this theory. The three schools seem to be contradicting one another. Ironically, all three exponents have derived their philosophies from the same textbooks of Vedanta. Each tried to prove his point using the authority of these ancient texts. There is no use relying on authorities. You must make use of the views of these great masters and arrive at your own conclusion. It is interesting to study Hanuman's view on the relation between a human and God. Hanuman is acclaimed as the greatest devotee, bhakta of Lord Rama. His life symbolized the ultimate in devotion to God. He gave the impression that the immortal God was far removed from his mortal self, that a human is separate from God. And yet, when asked how he was related to God, he answered thus: Deha bhavena daso asmi, jiva bhavena twadam shakha, atma bhavena tvameva ham. Translation: when I consider my body, I am your servant. When I consider my mind, I am part of you. But when I consider myself, you and I are one. Even the proverbial bhakta has declared that he and God are one. On attaining spiritual enlightenment, you become one with the supreme reality. You merge with God. Different schools of philosophy, different versions of truth, different knowledges of God have all turned into stone walls obstructing the vision of the reality. Ironically, they are meant to aid your vision. Hence, you must carefully reflect upon, understand the truths embedded in them, convert the opaque stones into transparent lenses to gain the vision of the reality, attain spiritual enlightenment.
The whole thing, the most important line is this: the three schools seems to be contrasting, contradicting one another. Underline that. Seems to be. It's only an appearance. It just seems to be there is a difference. Because Madhvacharya says, man cannot become God. Simple. God is God. Man is man. How can man? How can this human jiva become Brahman, Ishvara? Not possible. So what is he then? He is the master. We are his servants. So our job is what now? Serve his cause. That's it. Keep serving him. That's it. So keep serving the Lord. This is the Madhava. And Ramanuja comes and says, yeah, correct. This God is different, man is different, correct. But then, can you separate man from God? Is it possible? Because if God is infinite, man has to be part of that, no? So he's part of that. God is the whole, you're a part. Which part? Depending upon what you are. If you are a notorious fellow, then you are a tail of God. If you are a brainy chap, intelligent chap, then you are the brain of God. Brain is different, finger is different, no? Correct? You want to say brain and finger are same? Your finger chopped, what happens? You continue. I had a teacher, in school who lost, both his fingers. Both the fingers lost. He will be like this only, always. He lost 2 fingers. Never had an issue. But he was functioning normal. Imagine 2/5 of your brain is not functioning. What will happen? Brain is different. Your kidney is different. Your liver is different. Your heart is different. Everything is different. But then, can you separate kidney from your body? If you separate kidney from your body, what will happen to the kidney? It cannot exist. It is part of it. It can never be separated. So please understand that man cannot be separated from God. So he is part of it. Right, this is Ramanuja comes and say, part of the whole. Shankara comes and says, look here, absolute is absolute. Right? What difference does it make? Imagine a fellow says, out of infinite, I have taken 75. And I have kept. And he says, this is infinite, this is 75. Is there any meaning? Another fellow comes and says, see, the 75 is part of that infinite. Is there any meaning? There's no meaning to the whole thing because infinite is infinite. That's it. How can you split it? You can never split that. Madhva says, there is rope, there is snake. Correct. Rope is rope, snake is snake. Ramanuja comes and says, see, a snake cannot be away from rope, isn't it? Snake is part of the rope, no? Correct. Shankara comes and says, look properly. Snake is not, there's only rope. There is. And I am not interested in discussing about your snake. If you see a snake, you discuss about it. Don't come to me for a discussion. Let's have a debate with your rope and my snake. Let us see who wins. If I engage in a conversation with you means what? I'm not interested in discussing. Dismiss it straight away. This is Shankara. What is that? Why the 3 difference comes into picture is what he's explaining with Hanuman. See, if you consider yourself to be the body, if you have this Deha Bhava, there are 3 types of Bhavas here. One is Deha Bhava, another one is Jiva Bhava, third one is Atma Bhava. If you believe yourself to be the body, if you take yourself to be the body, then what is it? Matter is different, spirit is different, isn't it? That's what he says. They are 2 different things. Between the 2, who is the master? One is Chetana Vastu, another one is Jada Vastu. One is a conscious one, another one is inert, insentient. Right? Who can be the master? The sentient or the insentient? The sentient one is that which controls the insentient. So what is the job of the insentient one? Insentient one is there only to serve the purpose of the sentient being. The laptop is insentient, inert. I am a sentient being. When I say switch on, switch on. I say switch off, switch off. Imagine this laptop were to decide to function on its own. When I say switch on, it will not switch on. Whenever I feel like switching on, I will switch on. It has an independent, conscious decision-making capacities. Correct. He says, this, if you take yourself to be the body, you don't have that independence. You have to be dependent. As a dependent entity, what is your option? You have only one option. What is it? To serve the Chaitanya Vastu. That's it. Nothing else can be done. So therefore, what Hanuman says, Deha bhavena dasosmi. I am your servant. When I consider myself to be the body, then he says, he grows a little. From the level of the body, you tune yourself up to the Jiva Bhava, meaning the mind and intellect. When you properly tune up the intellect to the subtler themes and you chasten your emotions to experience the refined divine emotions, you reach a state of ecstatic one, where you will start feeling that you are part of the whole. That is your experience. Okay. You have to tune up for that. So if you tune up yourself as the Jiva with this mind and intellect, the subtle body. So when you consider yourself to be the physical body, one level, and then you grow up to the level of the subtle, where a perfect confluence of mind and intellect were to happen, you would experience something. What will you experience is, you will experience that you are almost a part of that entire world, divinity. This is the state, right? Part of it. I become part. I become one with it, as it were. But you don't feel that you are the same. See, it's not that you don't become the same thing. But still, you feel so close, so close, so close, you feel almost like that. So Ramanuja, this concept is this. You will have all the powers of Vishnu, except two things. What is it now? Only the power to create and power to dissolve you will not have. Everything else will be there with you. So as you keep growing in the spiritual path, what is going to happen to you is you reach a stage of becoming so close, so close, so close to God. You start appearing as extension of that. Which is figuratively referred as part of it. But just an extension. That's all. He says that is the Jiva Bhavena Tvat Amshaka. I become your Amsha. I become as good as you. Almost a part of you, as it were. So if you take a picture, you will not be able to decipher who is who. Right? Identical twins like. That is what I will happen. But the moment you grow beyond the Jiva Bhava to Atma Bhava, what is it now? There it is Tvamevaha. You and I are one. We are equal. There is no difference. All the differences dissolve. Like we say, the river enters into ocean. We say river merges into ocean. River enters into ocean and merges with the ocean and becomes one with the ocean. We don't say the river is floating on the ocean. We don't say the river has drowned in the ocean. We don't say all that, no. The ship is floating. Ship also enters, no, the ocean. But then the ship is floating there. That's about it. Or some of us enter there, drown. You drown. But the river doesn't float, doesn't drown. It just merges with the ocean. I give a beautiful example to define, to explain the difference, how the merger happens. It's like Madhva 1 says, one way of merger. What is it? It is like water merging with water. What is water merging with water? I have a bucket of water and there is water in the well. I can see them two different, no? Correct? How I will be treating the water in the bucket, how I will be relating to the water in the well, different. Isn't it? I see the difference very clearly. This is bucket water and that is well water. There is a difference. Then they say there is another way of merger happening. There it is exactly like I am using two bulbs in the room. Right? That's what I keep telling people. See, when you are sitting, you should sit facing the bulb. Now, behind you, if the bulb comes back, you look like a ghost. Right? I get scared many times with people. They say, you keep the bulb behind you. I say, you. There are two bulbs. See, there is light emanating from this. There is light emanating from that. Okay. At what point this light ends and that light begins? Can you define that? But you can clearly see there are two different sources, isn't it? I can see light coming from this, I can see it. From that also coming. From both I am able to see. I am seeing distinct there. But the light is what? This light becomes part of that light becomes part of this light, it merges. This is Visishtadvaita. Advaita, what is it now? Space merging with space now. There is a total space and there is a pot space. Right. There is a total space. Now, what we need to understand is the walls of the pot cannot separate the space which is inside from the total space. Is it not? Can it? Why not? Factually, there is no division at all. Is there a difference between total space and the pot space? Why? Because the walls of the pot itself is existing in the space. Right. So how can it separate? That space is indivisible, even though there are barriers, apparently, creating a division. But factually, it cannot be. And to pronounce this, we needed a unquestionable personality. Right. No one can question the integrity, the wisdom, the valor of a personality to acclaim such a thing. That is why Hanuman had stated it. Because no one can dispute Hanuman. Because one group of people will say, who is Hanuman now? Hanuman is the greatest servant of Vishnu. So as far as Vasishtha, they don't have a problem. Dvaita also cannot have a problem. Why? Because Hanuman is the eldest son of Vayu. Right, Puranic wise. If you take Hanuman, then Hanuman is what now? Hanuman is Amsha of Shiva himself. So thereby, these people also cannot have a problem. And Shiva as Amsha is Hanuman. What is Shankara? Shankara also avatar of Shiva only. So therefore, these people also cannot have a problem. Therefore, he picks up that one personality who will not be questioned by any one of these three. In fact, all four. No one in the system can challenge the statement of Hanuman. If Shankara had said the same thing, they'll say, Shankara will say like that only here. Say and dismiss it. If someone else says, they'll dismiss it. If this fellow says, dismiss it. If Vibhishna says, we'll dismiss it. If Prahalada says, we'll dismiss it. Right. But one personality who is indisputable, no one can dispute what is accepted as the greatest jnani, a greatest servant, and a greatest bhakta. All three superlative he is. The wisdom of Hanuman, superlative. Bhakti, not to talk about. His service is unimaginable. Such a personality says, this is the way you have to progress. So don't take all these things as it's only seems to be contradicting. But remember, it is not a contradiction. Then what is it now? It is just a way of presenting it from different levels. 3 floors. So understand Vedanta as one building, one house, which has 3 floors in it. They are not 3 different houses. One house with 3 floors. Right. It's a mansion. And it has very many rooms in that. Right. It's a huge one. Palace it is. With so much of wealth inside. Go and explore, it says. Don't just subscribe to one thing. So use the interpretations and the views of these great masters. Use it wisely. Don't dismiss it. Use it appropriately. But then finally you come to your conclusion. Arrive at your own conclusion, he says. So final authority of this has to be your own exertion and effort in the spiritual path. Anyone who has exerted in the path will concur to what Hanuman says. So, and the starting point has to be what? Na? We all believe ourselves to be the body. So the starting is this. First floor, second floor, third floor. So 3 floors, right? Let's see in the next class.